Good afternoon, friends of Wildland Fire. This is Darren Clay, your South Dakota State Fire Meteorologist, coming to you with our newest update for the wildfire potential outlook for this summer and beautiful 2026. Today is Friday, May 15th. So moving forward, let's take a look at what we're going to see. But of course, we've got to start with what drives our wildfire season during the summer months. During June and July, we really focus on drought. If we combine drought with above average temperatures and then short-term precipitation deficits, then we really start tilting the scales towards enhanced fire activity. And of course, like many of you all know, we are in drought currently. When we move to August, it's really kind of those shorter-term precipitation deficits, maybe 1 month or 2 month precipitation deficits as well, but again, above average summer temperatures. The key part to this right now is you want to think about layers. In terms of drought being the base layer, and then we start stacking on above average temperatures and short-term precipitation deficits on top of those drought conditions. And then we have to look at kind of day-to-day weather concerns. Going over the past year, let's look at our percent of normal precipitation. Most of the southeastern and western United States has been drier than average, but if we zoom in a little bit to the High Plains region, you can see that South Dakota is really kind of a tale of two worlds. The southern half of the state, drier than average, northern half of the state, wetter than average over the past 12 months. Looking at the past 90 days now, this is our percent of normal precipitation here on the left-hand side, and you can see that across nearly all of South Dakota, we're in that 25 to 50% of average over the past 90 days. What this turns out to be is on the right-hand side is how far away are we from average in terms of inches. For western South Dakota, inclusive of the Black Hills, and southeastern South Dakota, now we're starting to kind of get into that 3 to 4 to maybe 5 inches away from average. So this time of the year when we don't get precip, we really start to stack up that precipitation deficit. So those are really important metrics here in the middle of May. The other thing we got to think about is the temperatures that we've been seeing really since the start of the year. Now, this is our average temperature departure from average, and it's a historical average over about 100 years, 1901 to 2000. And you can see that across the broader part of the western United States, we're up for 4 months, right? This is a 4-month average. We're in that like 6 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit above average across large swaths of the western United States. And for many areas, this is the warmest on record in 132 years. So anything you see in red is the warmest 4-month time frame from January to April on record. Now, western South Dakota is not in the warmest in terms of our climate division rankings, but we're dang close, right? If it ain't the warmest, it's like the second or third warmest January to April in 132 years. And so that combined with the precipitation deficits has led to a lot of drought concerns. The other thing these really warm temperatures have done is they've reduced our snowpack across the western United States. Now, snowpack typically peaks on April 1st of each year across the mountains of the western United States. And so that's the map I'm showing. What you're seeing here is snow water equivalent. So basically, if you melt all of the snow down, you get an amount of water, and then you compare that to a 30-year average. And really what we're seeing is, single digits, teens, maybe up to 30 or 40% of average in large swaths of the western United States. Northern Rockies a little bit better, but still below average in terms of in terms of snow water equivalent. So it's very dry across the western United States. Not a lot of snowpack, and that is generally speaking pretty well correlated to wildfire activity during the peak summer months. Looking at our drought monitor, of course, those precipitation deficits and warmth have added up to bring a lot of drought conditions and a lot of drought concerns to our area. Southern South Dakota is seeing anywhere from D0 abnormally dry conditions all the way up to D3 extreme drought. There's areas in Colorado and Nebraska that are up in that D4 exceptional drought. D3 extreme drought, that should happen somewhere between 3 to 5% of the time historically, when you get up into that D4 exceptional drought, now you're talking 1 to 2% of the time you should be in there. So 1 to 2 years out of 100. So really, this is kind of historic dryness across Nebraska, northwestern Colorado, and high-end dryness for South Dakota. Top left map is just where we were back in December of 2025, just showing how the drought has dramatically expanded across the region. This is our class change in the drought monitor over the past 9 weeks. And so we've been really degrading across most areas of the state. So areas that were in D1 maybe are now in D2 drought conditions. As you see those 1-class degradations, 2-class degradations, maybe they were D0, now they're D2, or they were D1, and now they're D3 drought, something like that. So all of the yellows and oranges are showing class degradations. It's getting droutier, if I can use a fake word. Looking at some specific points, this is our Rapid City year-to-date, YTD is year-to-date precipitation. So down bottom left, that's Happy New Year. Bottom right, that is today, black dot for today, because precipitation data hasn't come in yet because it's not the end of the day. The brown line you see is our total normal accumulation. So that's the top line. So that's where we should be at for any time of the year between start of the year and now. And on the left-hand side, we have precipitation in inches. So for example, on average, and our average goes back about 80 years here in Rapid City, on average, we should be at about 5¼ inches of precipitation so far since the start of January 1st. However, we are at under 2. You can do the math. That's about 35% of average. So yeah, it's been very, very dry. The green line, by the way, is what we've seen this year. And then anytime you get these flat lines, these are showing long periods when we didn't accumulate any precipitation. So in Rapid City, we really haven't seen any precipitation since like April 25th, right? Something like that. We picked up a little bit of moisture. So it's been a couple of weeks. It's been dry. Things are crunchy out there. I was walking around in the grass today, and it's pretty crunchy. Looking at Custer year-to-date precipitation, same kind of chart, but for Custer now. Custer is at about 50% of average in terms of their overall precipitation. Pine Ridge, however, is one of the drier areas in the state year-to-date. They're roughly 1/4 of average precipitation for this time of the year. I'm highlighting southwestern South Dakota just because as we move into the summer months, it's really western South Dakota, southwestern South Dakota that sees kind of that primary fire activity. Looking at some near-term weather, there is some hope in the forecast. All right, here's our 1 to 7 day precipitation outlook. Looking at South Dakota, we got some decent precipitation. Looking at northwestern South Dakota, maybe down 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Southeastern South Dakota, maybe up in that 1.5 to 2 inches of precipitation. Most of this will come in the Sunday-Monday time frame, so that would be like the 17th and 18th of May. So yeah, we got a chance at some moisture coming up. But again, this time of the year, we should be picking up anywhere from 3/4 to 1.25 of an inch of precipitation per week. So for western South Dakota, this is still about average for this time of the year in May. For eastern South Dakota, it's kind of a bump above average, which is definitely good to see during kind of the startup of the growing season. Our outlook for the 8 to 14 day time frame, really looking at above average temperatures centered across the Dakotas during kind of the last weekish of May. Our precipitation outlook, really near average conditions expected. We're in such a large hole, however, right now, where even average precipitation isn't going to put what I like to call the money in the bank, right? It's not going to put that moisture into the soils where we really need it. Most of the rain that's going to fall is going to be used up by the plants basically as quickly as it falls. And so we need to start storing some of that moisture into the soil so we can have robust plant growth through the duration of the summer. Our 3 to 4 week outlook, again, looking at above average temperatures going through kind of mid-June across the northern Great Plains. There are some signals now of average to above average precipitation over the region. I would say that this area down here is probably the prime area where we should be seeing above average precipitation, and we might get a little bit of spillover in that precipitation crawling up the central to northern Great Plains. So keep your fingers crossed. The outlook isn't all doom and gloom. There is some opportunities for some moisture out there, and I'll be keeping my eye on it as we progress through the rest of the month. Taking a look at the summer, now these outlooks haven't changed. These are issued, generally speaking, the third Thursday of every month. Being this month is staggered weird, this will come out next week. So when I do an outlook for next Friday, we should have new maps looking at our seasonal temperature outlooks. And of course, this is our May through July outlook showing below average precipitation over the Pacific Northwest and kind of some heat surrounding the Pacific Northwest as well, kind of creeping into South Dakota. Stretching out a little bit farther into the summer months. Now, this is the same types of maps, but for July through September, above average temperatures kind of across the western United States. But now we're starting to see some signals of below average precipitation for the southern Great Plains, but above average precipitation for the desert Southwest. So this is really monsoonal moisture. So it's looking like trending towards an above average monsoon season for the Four Corners region. This tells me a couple of things. One, that might knock back their fire season, their fire potential a little bit, but generally speaking, when they have a better than average monsoon, it tends to bring us just enough moisture for thunderstorms. But if we're not pulling in Gulf moisture, because now we're looking at below average to our east, maybe some higher potential for some dry lightning. That's supposed to be a lightning bolt, but it looks pretty terrible. But yeah, maybe some elevated risk for dry lightning or mixed wet dry thunderstorms going through the summer months. Do remember when we're comparing, say, the summer of 2026 in terms of historical averages, the trend overall over the past 130 years has been an upward trend in temperatures across the United States. And we compare the summer of 2026 to a 30-year average that right now runs from 1990 to 2020. And, I think just looking at decadal trends really shows that the summer of 2026 will likely be warmer than previous summers just because of those trends. We are going into an El Nino year, which tends to bump up these temperatures even more. Our drought outlook, not a rosy map. This was produced a couple of weeks ago, but again, drought persisting or expanding across the broader western United States. One last thing I want to show, and this goes back into the idea of hope, is this is our Rapid City year-to-date accumulated precipitation, but now I have the chart expanded all the way to the end of the year. December 31st is down there, bottom right. All the black dots represent this year, saying that, hey, we don't know what we're going to get. I've pointed out a few years, 2002, 2006, 2007, and 2012. These are all the lines kind of clustered down here. Again, average is this brown line. 02, 06, 07, and 12 were 4 very, very busy fire years, and you can see that we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches short of precipitation during the peak fire seasons, kind of in the summer months. But what I want to point out is 2015, kind of an anomaly. 2015 is this gray line. First week in May, we were really, really short on precipitation in 2015. However, second week of May through the summer, ended up being one of the wetter years on record for Rapid City. So the tables can turn. I'm not predicting that this year, but you can't always use analog years in terms of where we're sitting right now to project what's going to be going on down the road. So I'm not going to bring you all doom and gloom today. There is a little bit of hope out there, at least in the near term. We're going to see some precipitation. Should take the edge off things for a while. So to summarize, we're in drought conditions. Again, average precipitation now it's around an inch per week. If we're not getting that, we're falling behind. We're looking at maybe average precipitation through early June, mid-June, but it is shaping up to be a hot summer across much of the United States. No strong signal on precipitation for South Dakota for the summer months. I'm not quite sure on that yet. And again, we have to factor in the widespread western U.S. snow drought in terms of overall national wildfire activity this summer. So there you have it. Stay safe. Keep your fingers crossed, and let's look forward to getting some rain in the coming days.